Hey guys, how's it going? I need to admit the title to this video is just a little bit misleading. Not all old people suck. So this is actually a follow-up to a video I made a while ago called Why Millennials Are Lazy, in which I used the argument that the reason millennials are lazy is because we pay 6% of our paycheck into Social Security, which we'll never get back. That's a foregone conclusion, basically, that my generation is never going to get Social Security back. And that money then goes to support old people who, in turn, bitch about young people, right? So obviously, that's not why millennials are lazy. And not all millennials are lazy. That's another thing to keep in mind. There's a lot of really hardworking millennials. But the reason that millennials are lazy, it's not because of Social Security. That's a contributing factor, definitely, but it's not the main reason. There's overburden with student debt, lower wages or wages that have been stagnant is another way to think about it. Prices have been continually increasing. All these different factors go into why millennials are lazy, right? But it's really, the Social Security argument is more so I use that to try and point out the fact that, hey, Social Security is actually just broken, because it really is, right? And I am not saying in any way that old people should not receive Social Security, because I don't believe that. If you paid into it, you are 100% entitled to what you paid into it. The problem is when I have to pay into it when I'm never going to get anything out of it, right? That's kind of an issue, because then essentially what you have is an old people tax where I'm paying money in to support, a group of people, but I'm not getting anything out of that in return, right? So that's kind of an issue when you want to think about, how you're incentivizing people. But the problem is Social Security, as far as I understand it, when my money gets sent to Social Security, it doesn't go into a separate account like when I put money in my 401k, right? Like when I put money in my 401k, it goes into an account. I can choose where that money goes, so I can put it in, domestic or foreign stocks. I can put it in sovereign or corporate bonds. I can put it in inflation protected accounts, emerging markets. I can basically diversify my investment however I want, right? But, and again, this is only what I understand of it, and I'm pretty sure this is true, but please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But when you pay money into Social Security, that money just flows into all the money that the government gets. So they don't set it aside and say, hey, in 35 years, we're going to have this big of a liability to pay for all these old people who, rightfully so, earned this money. They paid it to us. We should have invested it, I guess, and then we pay it back to them when they're old. As far as I understand, that's not how it works. Basically, you pay your money to the government, it goes into a big pool of funds that they then use on all kinds of fun stuff like wars and F-35 jets that we don't need and all kinds of other bullshit, corporate flights and, flying back to California. I guess people always point out Nancy Pelosi flies back to California on the government's dime, stuff like that. Whatever example you want to use, and it's the Democrats and the Republicans. It's not like it's one of the two parties. They both do it. My point is more so, if you're paying money into it and you're going to get it out, that's your money, right? It's your money, and you should be able to A, control where that investment goes, and B, be able to track it at least, right? And be like, hey, over my lifetime I've paid up this much in Social Security, I'm going to get this much back out, right? And there may be a way to track that, I don't know. But the problem is when my whole generation is paying money into the system that we're never going to get out, and it's going to support old people who did pay into the system rightfully, but their money got pissed away on other things. That's a problem, right? That's really what I wanted to point out with that last video. And I got a bunch of comments from, old people who are like, well, you lazy, millennials are lazy because you got trophies all the time. It's like, the trophy thing is kind of a misleading argument, because it's like, well, who gave us the trophies? It was our parents' generation. So if you really want to blame it on the trophies thing, I think that's kind of not a good argument. But what you really should be looking at is, well, why does the money get pissed away? Our government has 20 trillion plus in debt. Why do we continue to pay into it? And then people also pointed out on the comments, well, I fought in Vietnam and I fought in this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, that's great, and you paid into Social Security and you deserve your Social Security as well. But I shouldn't be paying your Social Security. You should be getting out what you paid into it, right? That's how it should work. And when people look at young millennials and say that we're lazy or this and that, it's like we have a pretty big burden from a financial standpoint. Sure, we didn't have to fight in World War I, we didn't have to fight in World War II, we didn't have to fight in Vietnam. Some millennials fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, and some of them are still over there. And that's terrible that we even have to occupy the entire world like that. But whatever. My point is more so, when you went to college, it cost you like $3,000. Now it costs over 100 grand, depending on where you go, right? And how you finance that. On top of that, it's like wages haven't gone up since the 90s or something like that. I don't know what the exact number is. Again, correct me if you want. But my point is, you throw all these economic burdens and shit goes downhill, right? So it just keeps going down and down and down. And all of a sudden, you have this entire generation of people overburdened with debt and with having to pay Social Security, and on top of that contributing to our own 401ks, because we all know Social Security is not going to be around, so we're trying to mitigate that risk in our own way. And what you end up with is lazy millennials. Call it what you will. It's like, oh my God, you just throw so much shit at a generation, and we try to pick up as much as you can, but no one wants to say what's true, and that's Social Security is broken as fuck. It's super broken, and no one's doing anything to address.
Yeah, so video got kind of cut off there at the end, but basically, yeah, we need to address Social Security because it's broken, and people always say if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Well, if it's broken, fix it, right? Or at least talk about fixing it. So that's all I really wanted to say. Old people, I love you. Peace.